Before I get into the meat of the video, I just wanted to open with this. Atom RPG is by far my favourite video game I've played this year so far. I say this without hesitation. When I play this game, I feel like I'm playing what Fallout should have become. An evolution on the familiar, but in some ways far superior. This is the soul of CRPG games. This game is made with passion, and you can feel it in every encounter, every NPC, every reference, and every joke. These people love making games, and they love the game they're making. I mention this because up until fairly recently I'd fallen into a bit of a slump. Though there were some fleeting moments of levity such as Warsim, which was an excellent game, most games did absolutely nothing for me anymore. It was like I was burned out of video games as a whole. This hit home for me when I finally finished Atom RPG for the first time and I felt emotions. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd just embarked on a long and meaningful journey through a game's world, interacted with memorable characters and made tough decisions with weight and consequence. For the first time in a long time, I realized I still loved playing video games. So, yeah, enough sap. Let's get to it. Setting. Atom RPG is a CRPG in a style reminiscent of the original Fallout games. It takes place in a world frozen at the height of an alternate Cold War era, after it went hot and slam-dunked the planet into a nuclear wasteland. Your adventures start as a recruit of the Atom Organization, a military force with the goal of collecting pre-war technology and reforming the former USSR. So basically a Soviet Brotherhood of Steel with less power armor and extra vodka. One of the side effects of Atom is also to care for the development of the surviving settlements, so they're more DC Brotherhood and less outcast in that regard.
Shouldn't you be banging rocks together or something?
Your mission is to go out into the wasteland and seek out a missing expedition led by a General Morozov. With nothing but a lead to an informant named Fidel, you're set out into the world of great adventure, only to remember that you're in Russia, so you're robbed blind and left on the outskirts of a town with nothing but the clothes on your back. From here on in, the game opens up as you explore your first settlement, meet the people, do some quests, and gain experience and knowledge about how the world works and what the post-war society is like. It pays to explore every nook and cranny in this game as there are secrets, quests, and useful items in abundance. One of the great things about the game world is that nearly every character you encounter has a full dialogue tree which connects them to the world around you. The overworld you start off in is only the first of 3 world locations as well, the other being a place off in the mountains and the other a nuked out city crawling with nasties and a fun as heck murder investigation quest. Just don't go into these places unless you're really good and ready, because this game takes no fucking prisoners. Let me give you an example. The game starts off pretty simple, easing you in with encounters with giant bugs and rodents. But you better pray you have a gun if you didn't think to put any points into your martial stats, because those little assholes will gnaw your balls off while you stomp around like a greasy fat dude from Craigslist on a model train set. Past that, it's a dice roll. Maybe you're lucky and your flimsy pipe gun doesn't have performance anxiety like mine did, but even then, bandits tend to come in groups, wolves tend to come in packs, and they all tend to go in raw. Don't even get me started on what goes on in those caves. The game really does a great job at conveying the feeling of a post-nuclear wasteland. And to some extent, I feel like it does a more realistic job than many in portraying how people might get along in the aftermath of such an event. Unlike in Fallout 4, where people live in bombed-out buildings with skeletons and trash lying everywhere, Atom RPG actually makes an effort to show that, hey, people don't like to sleep in a room full of corpses and trash. Also, the view of the various militaristic groups holding their slices of territory is never black and white. Many of them are simply trying to get by, or even see themselves legitimately as the protectors of nearby townships, justifying their harsh taxes on the populace as expenses for patrolling and killing off the less organized and more brutal bandits. What was awesome to see is that some of them actually had a point, even if their methods were brutal and excessive in some cases. But of course, some of them are just plain old bastards, or hate clowns. Characteristics. Much like games such as New Vegas, Atom RPG takes a very all-encompassing and rounded approach to the character stats, or as they're separated in this game, characteristics for your main stat and skills for your skills. Rather than simply being either for speech checks or combat ability, most of your attributes and some of your skills will have an effect on your conversations with other characters. For example, if you have a low personality, you might find that most people don't like talking to you, as every time you open your mouth you spew such vitriolic nonsense, people think you're a games journalist. With a high enough attention stat, you can know the intent of someone simply by staring into their soul with your brain-scanning 5G telepathic vision. Strength acts as your intimidation stat during many encounters. So if you want to play a roided out behemoth who scares the shit out of people simply by engorging your pecs and flexing your calf muscles, you can do that. Endurance has very limited usage in conversation checks as far as I can tell, having encountered it only once where I had to drink someone under the table. My endurance stat being 4 and thus me being a genetic dead end, I almost died of alcohol poisoning only for the guy I was drinking against to tell me he was joking. I'm afraid I don't understand Russian humor. Intellect governs many additional scientific and language options during speech checks, allowing you to tip your fedora at maximum velocity. Luck covers your chance to critical strike as well as giving you a few Deus Ex options during tense moments in the campaign. Though because I never spec'd into luck, I can't tell you if they worked or if the game will just pull some Russian prank on you and have God appear in a puff of smoke just to tell you you're fucked. Oh, and here's a tip. If you want to respec, make sure you have a strong barter skill unless you want to spend 7,000 rubles every time you want to. Abilities. Atom RPG has a map with a central point from which you can branch out into different weapon and ability specialities. Every level increases the cost of gaining a new ability by 1 point, and this is all abilities. Even if you want the first tier of a new branch, that's going to cost you the same amount as if you had made it down to the end of another, providing you the same level at that point. I went into the pistol ability line as it allowed me to make efficient use of my action points, filling people with more holes than a Japanese historian talking about China. As for the main proficiency skills, most of them are fairly self-explanatory with little tooltips which give you advice on what they're for. Tinkering, however, is the game's crafting skill, and I think it would be wise to give you some advice here. From my experience, putting points into tinkering is fun, but beyond the first few levels of the game, ultimately not very efficient or useful. To start off with, you can tie a stick to a pipe for a very basic pistol, which will serve you very well for the first leg of the game, but after you've scrounged up some rubles, I suggest buying a gun that wasn't constructed by trash goblins or made mostly out of rust. It says 10% chance to jam, but that's an XCOM 10%. Weapons. Guns have different types of ammo based off the caliber rather than what weapon type is. So when buying a gun from a vendor, really think about how prevalent the ammo is. I found that 30 cal seems to be most popular with 9mm a close second. This is an area in which the Tinkerer handmade garbage guns can come in handy, as you can scrounge parts for ammunition out of the trash and simply buy black powder from merchants to finish them off. Just keep in mind that something like a bear is going to give precisely zero shits about smaller caliber weapons like 9mm or whatever you tape together that shoots thumbtacks. So keep the strength stat up a little bit in case you need to use the heavier guns. Grenades can eat my ass. I never spec'd into them, but the fucking AI sure did. The amount of times I've been blasted off my feet in full armor, laying on my back like a goddamn turtle, while a meth head smacks me in the junk with a small axe for little to no damage, while turn after turn plays out until eventually someone with a PVC crossbow hits me directly in the pupil from across the map. I never used them myself after that out of spite. Trudegrad. Now I think I should mention that Atom RPG has a sequel currently released into early access. I'm mentioning this because Atom RPG itself was released into early access and shaped partially by fan feedback. The fact that the game released such a complete all-around amazing state gives me complete confidence in the development of Trudegrad. However, I wanted to let you know that this current state of the expansion only has around 8 hours of content, and many of the areas you can already access are not fully complete. The setting of Trudegrad is in the city of Trudegrad, where you're looking for a scientist involved in a project to save the world from a catastrophic threat. Won't say what it is, because that kind of spoils aspects of the first game. Still, Trudegrad is showing great progress and promise already. Many of the decisions you made in the base game carry over very significantly into the expansion. For example, you can meet an old friend, inherit an even worse version of your previous crippling drug addiction, like me, and even find your old car. All your levels are carried over to the overhauled ability system, which gives you a chance to redistribute all of your points. I think the new system actually works a lot better too, so props to them there. I'll do a full video of Trudegrad when it's fully complete as well. The developers of this game are bloody amazing, and I wish them all the best in their continued development. Godspeed, you Slavic geniuses. Oh, and the game's only like $20 Australian as well, and that's for like 60 hours of game, so get it!